Well, here it is, folks, the brand new start for the DC Universe on the big screen. James Gunn's Superman has arrived, and the buzz is infectiously positive. The perfect start for a brand new era of on-screen comic book dumb, if you ask me, but that's by the by. If you want our more detailed thoughts on the film and why it works so well, go check out the review me and Josh Brown did last week. Now, of course, with this being a superhero movie and all, and one from James Gunn no less, it's absolutely stuffed the Kryptonian gills with Easter eggs and references for fans to seek out, a great many of which you may have missed. So let's bask in those solar rays once again, shall we? I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 20 Easter eggs from Superman you probably missed.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description and it's all yours.
Number 20. Krypto is modeled off James Gunn's own dog. Aww. One of the easy standouts of Superman is Krypto, the Man of Steel's show-stealing pooch who he's fostering while his cousin Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, is off-planet partying it up on a bunch of red sun systems. But Krypto's inclusion involves an ultra-personal touch from James Gunn himself, given that Krypto's look and demeanor were modeled off the director's own dog Ozu, who he adopted while writing the film. Gunn adopted Ozu early in Superman's development, and after witnessing him destroy many of his own possessions around the house, he came to realize the comedic potential of featuring a superpowered pooch in his franchise reboot. And so, Gunn had Ozu digitally scanned for the film, in turn directly dictating Krypto's final design. Considering that Krypto is an easy highlight of the movie and surely gonna shift a ton of merch from Warner Brothers, it was certainly a canny-inspired choice on Gunn's part. And on that note, I was so giddy from watching Superman on Friday that I went out and bought Tom King and Bilquis Evely's Supergirl comic, which the Supergirl movie is pulling heavily from, and that comic is brilliant. And yeah, basically expect Krypto to feature heavily in that one too. No spoilers. Number 19. Luthor Corp. Lex Luthor's self-named company has traditionally been called LexCorp in the comics and other associated media, though Gunn made the decision to rename it to Luthor Corp for the movie. The director was asked about this choice on social media and actually revealed that he renamed the company for a good few reasons. For one, most people don't name their companies after their own first name, and it also left the door for Lex's parents, Lionel and Lillian, to be involved in the future. But Gunn also invoked Luthor Corp as a nod to the TV show Smallville, which was the first piece of major Superman media to rename LexCorp to Luthor Corp. Gunn said that he's a fan of the show, oh my god, he's just like me for real, and that played a part in him deciding to co-opt its naming convention. Although, I'm just saying it now, LexCorp just sounds better. It's punchy, you know? Lex, 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 Lex. Number 18. The voices of the Fortress robots. Right at the start of the film, we're introduced to a number of different robots who assist Superman in the Fortress of Solitude, each of which is voiced by a prominent actor, most of whom have a history of working with James Gunn. Perhaps most noticeably, we have the great Alan Tudyk, who voiced numerous roles on Gunn's animated series Creature Commandos, and plays Thor here, the most outspoken robot who prefers to go by the name of Gary. Elsewhere, Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy collaborators Michael Rooker and Pom Klementieff, who played Yondu and Mantis respectively, voice 1 and 5, while the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker's Jennifer Holland, who played Amelia Harcourt and is also Gunn's wife, voices another bot in an uncredited role. Number 17. Bavia and Jahanpur. A major subplot in Superman revolves around the conflict between fictional nations Bavia and Jahanpur, and while the layperson might assume that Gunn came up with these names himself, that's not the case at all. Much like the Suicide Squad, where Gunn took the name of island nation Corto Maltese from classic DC Comics, Bavia and Jahanpur were both pulled from decades-old source material. Bavia is an especially deep cut, having been first introduced in Superman Volume 1, Number 2, all the way back in 1939, almost 90 years ago. Jahanpur, meanwhile, is considerably more recent, having first shown up in 2002's JLA number 62. But the names of these nations won't be majorly noteworthy to casual fans, but the diehards, it's certainly another neat indication that they're in the hands of a filmmaker who is also a huge lifelong Superman fan. Number 16. Various in-universe brands. Gunn also gleefully invokes countless fictional in-universe DC brands which have been featured throughout the history of the comics, as will surely make devoted comic readers go, "Oh boy! Big Belly Burger!" That was me, I did that in the cinema. Jitter's Coffee, a caffeine chain which sprung up in Central City and is best associated with The Flash, can be seen at one point in the film, while during Supes' battle with a kaiju, signs for DC's preeminent fast food chain Big Belly Burger can also be seen. Oh, and when the action spills into an empty baseball stadium in the third act, we can see signage for the Metropolis Meteors baseball team, while in Clark's bedroom, a flag for the Smallville Giants American football team is hanging on the wall. Now, individually, these are small touches, but collectively, they help flesh out this incarnation of the DC universe and make it feel all the more lived in. Number 15. Stag Industries. A few times throughout the film, logos for Stag Industries are visible. This is a reference to Stag Enterprises from DC's comics, a research company owned by billionaire Simon Stagg, who is traditionally responsible for Rex Mason being turned into Metamorpho in the first place. Also, side note, just really giddy that Metamorpho is in a live-action DC movie. That makes my little nerd heart sing. But yeah, basically, Stagg wasn't very fond of Mason dating his daughter Sapphire, and so Simon arranged for Mason to be exposed to a radioactive meteorite, transforming him into Metamorpho, the gloopy, lovable guy we all know and love. It remains to be seen if we'll ever actually see Simon Stagg on screen, but Gunn has nevertheless teed up that possibility for future DCU movies. Number 14. Stephen Blackheart. Lex Luthor's most prominent lackey throughout the film is scientist Sidney Happerson, a character who has existed in the Superman comics for decades and is played here by actor Stephen Blackheart. Blackheart's casting might amuse die-hard James Gunn fans given that he is a good friend of the director's and seemingly something of a good luck charm, having played a small role in just about every major project he's produced, even dating back to 1996's Romeo and Juliet, which Gunn co-wrote. Most notably, he previously played Nowhere Dispatcher Steamy Blue Liver in the first and third Guardians of the Galaxy movies, while in the second Guardians he played the Ravager known as Brawl. On the DC side of things, he also played helicopter pilot Briscoe in the Suicide Squad and voiced Charlie the Gorilla in an episode of Peacemaker's first season. Number 13. Mr. Mixel Spitlick. Oh hell yeah, now we're talking. One of the funnier moments in the movie sees the Justice Gang, comprised of Guy Gardner, brilliant, Hawk Girl, amazing, and Mr. Terrific, battling a creature in the background while Superman is talking to Lois Lane in the foreground. Superman mentions that the creature in question is just a dimensional imp, which is a sure reference to the imps from DC Comics, magical entities from the fifth dimension, a realm existing outside of the space-time continuum. And this is likely a more pointed reference to by far the most famous of all the imps, Mr. Mixel Spitlick, a trickster who has served as a constant thorn in the Man of Steel's side. And let's be honest, if anyone can make Mr. Mixel Spitlick work in a future Superman movie, it's James Gunn. I'm praying that this actually happens. Number 12. Rick Flag Sr. Superman introduces mainstream audiences to Rick Flag Sr., the father of Rick Flag, who was portrayed by Joel Kinnaman in both Suicide Squad movies. Here, Flag Sr. is portrayed by Frank Grillo, but this isn't actually the first time that the character has appeared in Gunn's DCU. A white-haired Rick Flag Sr. was first introduced in Creature Commandos, where he was also voiced by Grillo, and here he makes his first live-action appearance with a black hairdo. The reason for the character's change of hair color? Well, according to Gunn himself, Grillo was shooting a role in the Paramount Plus series Tulsa King and was unable to change his hair color for the part. And so Gunn floated the idea that Flag Sr., a vain man apparently, simply ended up dyeing his hair black. Grillo will also portray the character in a more expanded capacity in the upcoming second season of Peacemaker, so keep an eye out for him there. Number 11. The Mighty Crabjoys. Numerous references are made to Clark Kent being a fan of the Mighty Crabjoys in Superman, a band you might reasonably assume to be a real pop-punk outfit from the early 2000s if you're not that clued up on the genre, given the incredibly Turn the Millennium poster of them hanging in Clark's room. But no, obviously the Mighty Crabjoys are actually a fake band invented solely for the DCU by James Gunn. More to the point, this movie isn't actually their first appearance in the universe. In Creature Commandos, Eric Frankenstein could be seen wearing one of their t-shirts while battling the bride. Also just love that Frankenstein's first name here is Eric. It definitely looks like an Eric. Furthermore, the catchy theme tune we hear from the band in the movie was co-written by Gunn and Eric Nally, the frontman of Foxy Shazam, the very real rock band that ultimately played the song. Additional fun fact? Well, the female vocals on the track were performed by Lulu Safran, the daughter of Peter Safran, who is of course the co-CEO of DC Studios, alongside James Gunn. Number 10. Baker Line. During a heart-to-heart with Clark, Lois mentions how different they are, telling him, "I was just some punk rock kid from Baker Line, and you're Superman." Now, Baker Line might sound like a pretty standard generic name for an area of a big city, but hardcore Superman fans might well appreciate that Gunn actually pulled this one straight from the comics. Baker Line is traditionally one of the 6 boroughs of Metropolis and resides north of another borough, New Troy. More to the point, it's also the home of Jimmy Olsen, who was played brilliantly here by Skylar Gisondo, and is generally accepted to be based on the Bronx area of New York City. Also, additional side note here, you should all go read Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen by Matt Fraction and Steve Lieber, because that comic is a beaut. One of the best of the last 5-10 years. Just an absolutely delightful Superman story. Please go read it. Number 9. Will Reeve. It kind of goes without saying that this new Superman movie nods lovingly to the earnestness of Christopher Reeve's original big screen portrayal of the character, and as a further sweet reference to this, the late Reeve's own son Will has an easily missed cameo. You see, Reeve plays a news reporter covering the Superman/Kaiju battle in the middle of the movie, and it's an especially fitting cameo given that Reeve is actually a real-life reporter for ABC News. Though Reeve has been modest about his own acting abilities, he did also declare that he's open to making more cameos in future DC media, which would be great to see. Number 8. Lex Luthor's weaponized rage bait. One of the most wild and brilliantly unexpected moments in the movie occurs when Lex Luthor reveals that he has a farm of mutant monkeys, writing derogatory tweets about Superman to help turn the tide of public opinion on him. Beyond being a cheeky play on the classic monkeys on typewriters maxim, this feels like Gunn quite pointedly venting on the toxic nature of online fandom, particularly in the superhero space, and especially given the intensity of some parts of the DC fandom and their mixed at best response to this new era of the franchise. And perhaps even more than this, it's hard to watch this scene without considering it a reaction to Gunn's own firing from Marvel in 2018 after unsavory past tweets were unearthed, only for him to be rehired a year later to make Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 7. Hypno Glasses. For as long as Superman has existed across media, it's been constantly mentioned how apparently implausible it is that people don't figure out Superman's alter ego, considering that Clark Kent doesn't exactly look a million miles away from the Man of Steel. And while most iterations of Superman have simply glossed over it, Gunn's take actually offers an amusingly brisk and very daft explanation from classic Superman lore. Or maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It's kind of left up in the air, but it would be funny if it's actually a thing. Guy Gardner briefly mentions that Clark wears Hypno Glasses, which slightly change how he's perceived by onlookers, in turn preventing them from putting two and two together. It's arguably no less silly than the inherent conceit of nobody figuring out that Clark is Superman, and yet is actually lifted from a 1978 Superman comic, so hey presto, there it is. It's an explanation that certainly wouldn't work in a more serious-minded Superman movie, but it absolutely fits the shamelessly goofy Gunn iteration to a T. Number 6. Mark Waid and Alex Ross. It's not remotely surprising that Gunn, a big Superman superfan, would take the opportunity to pay tribute to a few of the most seminal creatives who've worked on the Man of Steel's comics over the decades, though these nods are definitely easily missed. When Supes is taken into custody by Lex Luthor, a street sign can be prominently seen which reads Wade Street. Gunn himself confirmed that this was a reference to comic book writer Mark Waid, best known for penning the seminal Superman Birthright, among many other comics for DC and Marvel. Also, when Superman saves a young girl from being hit by debris, a street sign reads Ross Street, surely a nod to Alex Ross, whose work on Kingdom Come alongside Waid is considered some of the greatest to have come out of the modern age of comics. And here's one more, or rather one more, as Moore Street can be seen at one point too, undeniably nodding to the legendary Alan Moore, who authored the old-timer Superman comic, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which was also adapted in Justice League, and that is one of the show's best episodes too, so watch that if you can't read the comic. Number 5. Martian Manhunter. After imprisoning Superman in a pocket dimension, Lex refers to him as a Martian, only for Superman to correct him that he's not a Martian, not, being from Mars and all. This being a James Gunn joint, it's impossible to view this as anything but a nod to the fan-favorite DC character, the choco-munching brilliant guy himself, Martian Manhunter, a green-skinned humanoid from Mars who is also one of the inaugural members of the Justice League. And also a pretty cool detective in Gotham City, so I hope we get to see that in the future too. Though we don't get the character in this movie, it seems like it's just a matter of time before Gunn introduces him in a future DC film, considering how perfectly suited he is for the filmmaker's sensibilities. It's also worth noting that the white Martian-esque creature who ferries Supes across the pocket dimension is not of that species, but was instead created by Lex at some point before the events of the film. Number 4. Baby Joey and Sapphire Stag. Because introducing Metamorpho on his own wasn't weird enough for James Gunn, he also decided to bring in Metamorpho's strangely adorable baby son, Joey. And indeed, Joey Mason is imported from the comics too, where he made his debut all the way back in 1990. We also briefly see Metamorpho and Joey sat next to a woman near the end of the film, played by Louisa Krause, who is credited as Sapphire Stag. In the comics, Sapphire is also the long-term love interest of Metamorpho and the mother of Joey, and as mentioned earlier, is also the daughter of Simon Stagg, the very man responsible for Rex Mason becoming Metamorpho in the first place. Number 3. A.D. Sorrell. When Superman battles the Engineer at the empty Metropolis Meteor Stadium, you might notice a sign around the stadium reading the word Sorrell. Now, this might seem like a pretty generic company name, or maybe a nod to a corporation from wider DC lore, but it's actually a playful reference to one of the film's most important crew members, which is pretty neat. A.D. Sorrell was the movie's lead graphic designer, meaning she oversaw all graphic design elements of the final product, such as the various logos we see throughout the film, which help ground it in our own reality. We can't say for certain how Sorrell's name ended up in the movie, whether placed there by herself or by a colleague, but it's a clear tip of the hat to her superb work on the film. Number 2. Maxwell Lord. Throughout Superman, a few references are made to Maxwell Lord, a billionaire supervillain from the comics who was most recently portrayed by Pedro Pascal in Wonder Woman 1984, although it is worth noting that he was only a villain like 20 years ago, and before that he was just some rich guy. Notably, the Justice Gang's attire has the logo of Lord's tech company, Lord Tech, emblazoned on it, seeming to confirm that he is behind the outfit's existence, a nod to Lord's own role in the iconic Justice League International comics from the 1980s, which saw Batman punch Guy Gardner in the face, and I'll be totally flabbergasted if we don't get that moment in the upcoming Justice League. And Lord himself also makes a brief appearance at the very end of the movie, after Lex is taken into custody. Lord, played by James Gunn's brother Sean, hilariously remarks that liberals and conservatives alike can agree that Luthor sucks. This won't be a one-off cameo for Gunn though, as the trailer for Peacemaker's second season has already confirmed that he'll be appearing in it in some capacity. And number 1, Bel Rev. At the very end of Superman, we hear that Lex Luthor is being transported to Bel Rev, a correctional facility which should sound familiar to even those kind of casually versed in DC lore. This federal penitentiary is commonly featured across DC media, most notably in live-action form in the Suicide Squad movies and in Peacemaker. Naturally, Lex going to Bel Rev leaves the door tantalizingly open for him to cross paths with countless other DC supervillains in future films and TV shows, as well as Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, who of course runs the facility. So yeah, thankfully it goes without saying that we probably won't go too long without seeing Lex again in some capacity. What a movie. Just stuffed to the gills with the good stuff. Bring on the next one.